right, strap in everyone, because we're diving deep into the world of AI today. Specifically, GPT-4, the latest and greatest from OpenAI.
The one everyone's talking about.
Exactly. We've got a ton of info to unpack, technical stuff, surprising results. So think of this as your crash course on what GPT-4 can do, how it's different, and why it's making waves.
It's definitely a game changer.
Okay, so first things first, GPT-4 isn't just about text anymore.
Right.
This thing can actually understand images. Like, imagine showing it a picture and it can tell you what's in it, or explain a meme.
It's what we call multimodal. It can handle different types of input, not just words, but visual info too. It changes how we can interact with AI.
It's mind-blowing, right? Like, AI is starting to get the world the way we do.
Yeah.
But wait, there's more. GPT-4 isn't just understanding language, it's acing standardized tests. Like passing a simulated bar exam, scoring in the top 10%, and that's not all LSATs, DEPIATs, GREs. Crushed them all.
It really makes you wonder, is this true intelligence? It's showing crazy reasoning and problem-solving skills.
But it's still working with the data it was trained on, right?
Exactly. So it can solve problems on a test, but that doesn't mean it understands the real world like, say, a human lawyer.
Good point. Easy to get carried away with all this and think GPT-4 is some kind of super intelligence. But it's still a tool. And every tool has its limits. Speaking of development, here's where it gets interesting. The researchers at OpenAI were able to predict how well GPT-4 would perform based on its predecessors. They used this thing called a power law fit. Can you explain that for me and everyone listening?
Sure. It's simpler than it sounds. Imagine trying to predict how tall a tree will grow based on how fast it grew in its first few years.
Okay, I'm got you.
You'd see a pattern. The faster it grows early on, the taller it's likely to get. That's like what OpenAI saw with smaller language models. As they got bigger, their performance improved in a predictable way, a power law.
So they used that pattern to predict GPT-4.
Yep. Even though it was much larger than anything they'd built before, and they were shockingly accurate.
Wow. So what does that mean? What does this power law tell us about how AI is developing?
It means AI development is becoming more predictable, more of a science. We're figuring out the rules of how these models learn and improve. Huge for the future of AI. We might be able to know what AI can do even before we build it.
That's both exciting and a little scary.
Definitely.
Makes you think, can these AI systems be trusted to tell the truth? Which brings us to the Truthful QA challenge. How's GPT-4 doing with figuring out what's true, especially with all the misinformation out there?
Yeah, that's a big one. Earlier models, well, they weren't always truthful, but GPT-4 is way better, especially after this thing called RLHF reinforcement, learning from human feedback. Like giving GPT-4 a tutor.
A tutor?
Yeah, it gets rewarded for true answers and corrected when it's wrong.
So it learns to be truthful through positive reinforcement.
Exactly. And the results are encouraging. GPT-4 is getting much better at understanding facts, crucial if we want AI we can rely on. But even with these advances, it's not perfect. It still has limitations.
Right. The reports mention a limited context window. What's that?
Think of it like short-term memory. It can only hold so much information at once. Might have trouble with long or complex text.
Like trying to remember a long shopping list without writing it down?
Yeah, exactly.
So even GPT-4 has room to grow.
Absolutely. AI development never stops.
We've covered a lot. Multimodal abilities, its test scores, truthfulness. But we also know it's not perfect. It's got limitations.
For sure.
And we need to remember those as we explore its potential.
Exactly. It's so important to have these discussions to really understand both the good and the bad of AI like GPT-4. The future of AI affects us all.
Couldn't agree more. This is a crazy, fast-moving field. We need to stay informed and keep asking the tough questions. What's next on our list for this deep dive?
We need to talk about the elephant in the room, misuse, with something as powerful as GPT-4.
You're right. That's on a lot of people's minds. We've all seen those movies where AI goes rogue. What's OpenAI doing to prevent that with GPT-4?
Well, we're not at the Terminator stage just yet, but OpenAI is taking misuse very seriously. One thing they're doing is pre-training filtering, being super careful about the data they use to train GPT-4, weeding out anything that could lead to bad outputs, trying to make the training data as neutral as possible.
So like a museum curator choosing artifacts for an exhibition.
Yeah, kind of. They're curating the data so GPT-4 learns from the best sources. They're also using techniques like reinforcement learning, where they reward the model for good responses, like nudging it in the right direction, making sure it aligns with human values.
Like training a dog, treats for good behavior.
Exactly. Positive reinforcement works for AI too, but training isn't enough. OpenAI also has strict usage policies. No using GPT-4 for harmful stuff like hate speech or misinformation.
So they have rules and they enforce them. How? They have teams that monitor how GPT-4 is being used. If they see any violations, they can take action, like revoking access. It's like a guardian, making sure this powerful tool isn't used for the wrong reasons. Reassuring. But it must be a tough job, right? Like a game of whack-a-mole. As AI gets more advanced, people will try to misuse it.
Definitely a challenge. But OpenAI is constantly updating its policies and safety measures, trying to stay ahead. They're also working with the research community, sharing what they find, encouraging collaboration on AI safety.
Sounds like a responsibility we all share, making sure AI is used for good.
Absolutely. The future of AI depends on open discussion, collaboration, and responsible development. Now, switching gears a bit, let's talk about how GPT-4 is actually being used. The research paper has some interesting examples.
I'm all ears. It's one thing to talk about it in theory, but how does it perform in practice? What kind of tasks? Did they make it write a screenplay?
Maybe not a screenplay, but they tested GPT-4 on a bunch of academic and professional benchmarks. For example, a simulated bar exam, multiple choice, and essay questions.
How'd it do?
Scored in the 90th percentile, better than 90% of human test takers.
Seriously?
Yeah.
So it's not just memorizing, it's understanding and applying legal concepts. Any other tests?
Oh yeah. It aced the LSAT, SAT, and GRE2, all in the top percentiles, showing some serious reasoning and problem-solving skills, sometimes even better than humans.
Like it's figured out how to beat standardized tests. But those were just the warm-up, right? What else did they have it do?
They had it write different kinds of creative text poems, code, scripts, musical pieces, emails, letters, you name it, even answering questions in a helpful way, no matter how open-ended, challenging, or strange they were.
Putting it through its paces.
For sure. They wanted to see how flexible and creative it was, how well it could adapt to different styles and tones. And GPT-4 did pretty well, generating human-quality text in lots of different forms.
Sounds like the perfect student. But even the best students have weaknesses, right? Where did GPT-4 struggle?
Well, it's important to remember that GPT-4 isn't perfect. One thing it can have trouble with is common sense reasoning. You know, those things that seem obvious to us because of our experience in the real world?
So it's like that friend who can solve complex equations but can't figure out how to make toast.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Shows that even advanced AI still has some catching up to do to match all of our human abilities.
Right. Human intelligence is more than just logic and reasoning. It's intuition, empathy, creativity.
Exactly. So we need to be careful and humble about AI development. These are powerful tools, but they shouldn't replace human judgment.
Finding the right balance. AI to enhance our abilities, not replace them.
I agree. That's why ongoing research, ethical considerations, and open discussion are so important. We need to be aware of the risks, but also embrace the potential of AI to make our lives better.
This has been a fascinating deep dive into GPT-4. Clearly, it's a game changer and will impact all of us. What other insights can you share?
Well, they also looked at how it works with different languages, and it was pretty amazing. GPT-4 can understand and generate text in a bunch of languages, even some that are considered low resource, meaning there's not a lot of data available for training.
Really? So it's not just English, it can actually understand and communicate in other languages.
Exactly. They had it do things like translation, summarization, even creative writing in languages like French, Spanish, Chinese, and it did really well.
So it could help people from different cultures understand each other better.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just about automating tasks, it's about helping people connect.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. GPT-4 can handle images and text, it aces tests, it's getting better at telling the truth, and it can work with multiple languages. Are there any areas where it's still behind humans?
Well, as I mentioned, common sense reasoning is still a challenge for AI. It can make assumptions that seem illogical to us because it doesn't have our real-world experience.
It's like that person who can solve crazy math problems but can't remember to grab an umbrella when it's raining.
Yeah, exactly. Shows that even the most advanced AI still has some things to learn about being human.
So it's a journey. We've made huge progress, but there's still a long way to go before AI can truly match all the things that make us human.
Definitely. It's a journey, and one that needs to be done carefully and responsibly, with lots of discussion and evaluation along the way.
Well, this has been an incredible look at GPT-4. Clearly, it's a game changer, and it's going to have a huge impact on all of us.
For sure. And it's just the beginning. These advancements in AI are so exciting, but they also make us think about some really big questions about what it means to be intelligent, about ethics, about the future of work,
It's a lot to think about.
It is. And it's up to all of us to be part of this conversation, to understand both the good and the bad, and to make sure that AI is used to make the world a better place.
Well said. To everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into GPT-4. We hope you found it informative. And remember, the future of AI is something we're all creating together. So stay curious, stay engaged, and keep those questions coming.